There are words we use as if we understood them. Idea is one of them. We invoke it in classrooms, in revolutions, in the quiet sanctum of a notebook. We say, "I had an idea," the way we say, "I had lunch." And yet, few things are more mysterious or more dangerous than an idea. Before we go further, a brief disclaimer. This is not an academic paper, though it is born from academic soil. You will hear echoes of Plato, Husserl, and Brandom here, traces of phenomenology, metaphysics, and mathematical logic. But what follows is not bound to the conventions of peer-reviewed prose. It is not a thesis in the formal sense. It is closer to a meditation, or perhaps a drift, through the contours of thought. Still, it would be mistaken to call it informal. Precision matters, but so does resonance. And if this reflection finds itself on YouTube, in a format where philosophy competes with thumbnails and scrolls past the noise, it is not because the thought is diluted. It is because new channels of communication can also be new vessels for reflection. A video is not a footnote. It is a staging ground where ideas are not only explained, but felt, paced, challenged by time and tone and silence. In this sense, what you are witnessing is an experiment, not just in content, but in form. The question, what is an idea, is philosophical, yes, but also aesthetic, technological, even architectural. And philosophy, when it is most honest, does not pretend to be outside itself. It folds back. It watches itself think. So if this feels like an essay, or a script, or a cinematic whisper, let it. Categories are useful until they aren't. What matters is whether thought happens, and whether, in some corner of your frame of reference, it leaves a mark. Not as a claim, but as a disturbance, a shift, a slight misalignment between what you believed and what just might be truer. Let us proceed then. An idea is not a fact. It is older than fact and often more enduring. Kingdoms have fallen for ideas. Gods have been invented to serve them. Entire civilizations are but footnotes to their unfolding. To ask, what is an idea, is not to ask a question of psychology or of information theory. It is to step into the vertigo of metaphysics, to approach what Plato called the Eidos, but which the modern mind might mistake for geometry, or worse, for data. Plato imagined ideas as forms, eternal, unchanging, pristine, the real reality behind appearances. But this image, though luminous, is incomplete. The idea is not merely what is, it is what insists, what pulls the world into clarity through the act of thought. Centuries later, under very different skies, Husserl would see in the idea not a transcendent realm, but a structure of disclosure. How things come to appear with coherence, how meaning lifts itself from the anonymous flux of sensation. He saw that science itself begins not in measurement, but in idealization, that before we test a hypothesis, we must have the form of its intelligibility. Ideas, then, are not decorations on the surface of being. They are the very grammar of what can be grasped. The philosophical tradition we are engaging with here considers ideas as the architecture of experience, not mere mental contents, but the very structures through which the world becomes intelligible. Let's press further. In the previous video, we spoke of semantic inflation, the way meanings stretch, thin out, or collapse under the weight of overuse and under-questioning. But what, exactly, inflates? And what gives an idea enough structure to resist that inflation? Here, mathematics returns, not as number crunching, but as the logic of form. To think of an idea mathematically is to understand it as a pattern of relations, a map of possibility space. Ideas are not ornaments of thought. They are constraints and guides. They delineate what counts as coherent, what counts as real. The more structurally robust the idea, the more relationally tight it is, the more it acts not merely as a thought, but as a system. Consider the idea of market value. It is not a physical object. It is a structure of expectations, a probabilistic geometry of choices, but it guides behavior with more authority than most facts. Why? Because it is not projected onto reality. It is embedded in the mechanisms that generate it. Same with the idea of price. A price is not just a number, it is a relational vector, the intersection of supply, demand, risk, and time. The price of bread is not the bread. It is a crystallization of the idea of exchange, encoded through millions of interactions, structured, dynamic, and endlessly updated. It is the ghost of collective cognition made visible. In this sense, mathematics is not opposed to life. It is the skeleton beneath its conceptual flesh. Phenomenologically, we do not experience raw data. We experience structured affordances, things in terms of what they offer, what they cost, what they mean. And these meanings are, at their core, formalizable because they obey relational logic. What Husserl intuited, and what modern cognitive science often forgets, is that the idea is not a hallucination, nor merely a representation. It is a structure that allows experience to rise to the level of coherence. Without this structure, the world would buzz and blur. But once an idea enters the feedback loop of a system, a currency, an algorithm, a state apparatus, it becomes something more. It becomes operational. It dictates outcomes. It stops being just an idea and becomes the medium of decision, the grid in which we live. And this is the deeper danger of semantic inflation, when an idea that once organized experience begins to float free, untethered from the very constraints that gave it power, like the word value or freedom or truth. Once they stop acting as precise maps, they become slogans, noise with syntax. To resist that, we must return to the architecture, the way ideas act like mathematical operators on the field of the real. Simplifying, guiding, eliminating dead ends, and highlighting paths. A good idea does not merely explain, it restructures the visible. It tells the world what to do. Now here is where it gets uncomfortable. The power of an idea is not in its elegance, it is in its invasiveness. An idea enters not with proof, but with plausibility. Like a parasite in inception, it doesn't convince, it configures. It reorients your perception until it feels like it was always already there. It begins as suggestion. It ends as axiom. No one wakes up believing in democracy, or infinity, or human rights. These are not self-evident truths. They are successful ideas, ones that survived long enough to stop needing justification. We no longer think about them. We think with them. And that is their triumph and their peril.